Okay. I still can't figure this out.
Oh, you will.
I'm going to be like 90 going, I can't figure this out. Why does this happen? All right.
The speed of technology, Jenny. The speed of technology.
Honestly, I know I'm becoming, I don't want to say old because I don't feel old at all, but I know I can sense the passage of time when I come in on in the morning and they've changed something about it and I'm freaking out.
Hey, and it's only, think about how long we've been on there, and there was literally no advancements for a long time.
No.
And then now every couple weeks, it was kind of like once a month or once every now and then. Then it was kind of maybe once every 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. Now it's like every week you come in, and that's literally all just AI getting better and them providing more tools in some capacity.
I guess, but it's killing me. Oh, Lisa says, hey, you two, those colors look so good on both of you. It is weird that you are dark colored today. We really are siblings from other parents, aren't we? Shelley says the same. All right, so we got to get right into it because Representative Shaw has a hard stop, and we do not want to, we want him to get through everything he's got to get through because there are some great things that we need to talk about. So I'm going to pull him in. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
We're already populating with viewers, so it'll take him a few minutes. But what I do want to make sure we don't miss is you have a bill, HB 3724. I'll put it in the comments, HB 3274. This is what my friend Michael Hall would say. This is why you have a producer.
3724, by the way.
Oh, shoot. Dang it. Okay.
Well, you said it again right once, and then you transposed it.
Yeah.
All right. So 3724. Is that right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So we're going to put that on there. HB 3724. This is one that is going to be heard on Tuesday. It's at 3, isn't it?
3 o'clock in the Utilities Committee.
So please, I'll send it out again. I'll repost it on my Facebook page the way I did it the other day where I had the block of legislators in the committee. So all you have to do is just copy and paste and then send them a message about this bill. But let's talk about this bill. What is this bill about, Representative Shaw?
I mean, in a nutshell, the bill is designed to put in some extremely common sense regulations on high demand facilities. And we're defining high demand facilities primarily as data centers, cryptocurrency mining operations, artificial intelligence computing facilities, or maybe even battery energy storage systems, because we know that those use a lot of power as well. But really the whole intent is to protect people and protect our natural resources, right? So we're going to protect ratepayers in the sense that we're going to make sure that those high demand facilities have to pay for 100% of their infrastructure costs. So if they're coming into an area and we've got to put in a whole lot more infrastructure with, transmission lines or what have you, they need to bear the complete cost of that to improve it. That should not be passed down to individuals or small business owners or what have you. We're also going to protect taxpayers from the perspective of we should not be giving these entities taxpayer money to come into the area, whether it's some form of subsidy or incentive or what have you. That's not okay. So free and fair market, they need to come in on their own, pay their way to get in here and what have you. And then the next one, which I think is really, really important, is water use protections. So we know that data centers, particularly in our area of the country, are going to be water cooled or evaporated cooled. They're not air cooled, right? Because of our humidity and our climate out here.
Can't even keep our own homes cool in July and August.
Exactly. So a lot of these will use up to potentially 1 million gallons of water per day or more. And so the language that I have in the bill is that if they come into an area like the one in Stillwater, for example, I think that's Google, if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
Yeah. The specs that I saw on that were proposing that they were going to come in, get a contract with Stillwater for water usage, and the anticipated water consumption was going to be about 37% of what Stillwater uses in whole on a day-to-day basis. So that's not okay to come into an area and all of a sudden have that kind of increase in water usage. So I'm putting the threshold at, if you come into an area, you can't overnight consume more than 25% of what that town is already consuming on a day-to-day basis, and you can't consume more than 5% of what they have under contract in total on water rights. So that's in a nutshell what we're trying to do. I mean, we're seeing so many of these pop up and being proposed in different areas that we really need to stop and pause and make sure that we have some of this in place so people don't get completely bulldozed over by these companies.
Well, you also had a section in there about decommissioning.
Yes. So there is a decommissioning piece that I've even talked with you about. And so before they can begin construction or operations, they have to have a decommissioning plan. They have to have complete financial assurance that they can cover that cost in totality, which if they completely abandon it, they would be required to basically restore the site back to its previous condition. If they find a way to transfer ownership to somebody else that wants to use that real estate going forward, maybe for a different purpose, that's fine. But the decommissioning requirements transfer to the new owner. Another piece that I forgot in the bill is that no foreign entity needs to be in control or ownership of that facility. And we're not putting it on ag land either.
Yeah. So all of those things made me super happy. And I do think that we don't think about the last couple of things that you talked about, which was the decommissioning and the not putting them on ag land. I think everybody is most people who are awake now are aware of the water problems and the, citizens having to pay, increased rates for all of the additions they're having to make to the grid. But I think don't you think, Jim, honestly, there are better places to put these things than in the middle of an agricultural field?
I mean, one would think, yes, and I think even from the federal government perspective, from DC, they're even encouraging out the gate, you need to be looking at existing Superfund sites, sites that, aren't usable for normal agricultural purposes or what have you. Like go after those first, right? But from an ag perspective, I can tell you I'm already getting friction from some of the members on the committee that this is a private property rights, and you can't tell somebody what to do with their property. So it's mirroring the argument that we've been facing for years on the wind and solar argument too, right? Well, if you're putting that size of a facility in the middle of agricultural land, what's the farmer or rancher next door going to do when you start messing with that water at that scale and they can no longer water? These facilities have an impact beyond the boundary of where they're installed. They just do. And it's the same for wind and solar.
So our friend Destiny Weeks got onto the rope page the other day. And when I was talking in a video, I was talking about private property rights and was, trying to humble me about my position on private property rights. And I gave her this story, and I think it's a pretty good one. So I live on a property, but I decide that I'm going to build a circus on my property because I just love circuses. I've just always wanted one. So I'm going to build a circus on my property. Well, it's my right. It's my property. But then it's weird because then there isn't a place to park, and it creates all of this parking problem and all these cars coming into this area that had never come into before. My neighbors can't enjoy their dark sky anymore because I have strobe lights and big lights, and they're just all kinds of light pollution. There's all the noise, and now they can't even sit on their back porch and enjoy their time because out in the country because of all the noise. So courts have ruled, and the Supreme Court included, has ruled numerous times that people have the right to the enjoyment of their property. This is why if dogs are barking in the city and you have a neighbor who allows their dogs to bark all the time, they'll get fined. they'll get fined. There are noise ordinances, there are light ordinances, because people have the right not only to own their property, and they have the right to do as they wish, but not when it affects the property of other people and their enjoyment of their property. So I think we just need to mention that over and over and over again. You do have the right to do what you want on your own property, unless it prevents your neighbors from having the enjoyment of theirs.
I mean, I've said it 1,000 times. My right to swing my fist stops where your nose begins, right? Like, I mean, I can't, you can't be overtly negligent on your property and expect to not be responsible for your actions. I mean, I can't go hunting and shoot and miss the target and go into my neighbor's house. Like, that's kind of not okay, right? Or countless other examples. I mean, yeah, I don't subscribe to that argument that's being tossed at us from the other direction.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we gave some examples. Hopefully that will help other people kind of push back on that narrative as well. I mean, that's why I like the education aspect of this show, is because some people don't know how to articulate these points. And I think it really helps when we talk about this, because it educates people and then they're able to articulate those points. Okay. So the data bill is huge. That's going to be heard Tuesday at 3:00 in the Utilities Committee. Please check my Facebook page. I'll put all the information up there so that you've got it, so that you can phone call on that. Sandra Traywick, Save Our Farms and Ranches, she puts all that stuff out as well. So just kind of watch on social media and you'll see it, but you can definitely go to my page. All right.
Well, so before you go on, Janet, just 2 questions from me, Jim. Do they have to provide their own energy with your bill, or do they just buy the energy from the community?
Either way. So I mean, there was a bill passed last year that they can produce their own power if they want to do that behind the meter. But if they want to contract with OG&E or PSO or what have you, they have that ability. Again, it's just that ratepayer protection piece is going to be in place. The Corporation Commission is going to monitor and manage that. There's also a clause that if they contract with OG&E or PSO for a certain megawatt consumption per month, but they're under that, there's protection for OG&E and PSO that they have to at least pay 80% of the contracted rate, no matter what, per month.
Okay. So like 5 years down the road, if it's a Google or an Amazon, they don't care what market rate is. So the amount of energy that they consume is not going to affect the people in the community adversely, because they can just pay whatever they want to pay.
Right. And I mean, there's still nothing preventing them from negotiating, and locking in rates with OG&E and PSO at whatever that needs to be. It's just from an infrastructure perspective in the beginning, or even going forward, if they have to expand infrastructure going forward to maintain, whatever consumption they need, that's still on them.
Okay.
All right. So the next one, let's talk about, and I promise, Jim, I will try not to lose my cool. HB 3727. I'll try to type that in properly this time. HB 3727. All right, let's talk about this one.
So initially, this bill had two main components. Number one, it was going to be banning taxpayer-funded lobbying. So if you're a taxpayer-funded entity like Oklahoma Municipal League, for example, and you're spending millions of dollars at the Capitol lobbying some special interest that most of the time is against the wishes of the people that are footing the bill, right? That's not okay. The second component of the bill was a cooling off period for former legislators to become registered lobbyists. I'll tell you, the committee chair told me that in its current form, he would not have heard the taxpayer-funded lobbying component. So not okay, first of all, right? Not okay at all. So what I decided to do was, okay, we're still going to go after the topic in some form. And so what we're doing is we're still going after the cool off period for former legislators to become registered lobbyists, which I've set a 4-year window. So if you term out or if you get voted out by the people in your district, you got to now wait 4 years before you can register as a lobbyist. That they agreed to hear, and that should be heard next Thursday, I think at 10:30 in the morning. One of the last set of committees.
Writing myself a note.
Yes, ma'am. That's the civil judiciary committee.
Civil judiciary. Okay. Well, let me ask you this, because I may be wrong, because I was ranting about this to you the other day. Don't we already have a 2-year cooling off period?
I don't believe we do. Most states
really?
around the country, a lot of states have 2 years. Florida has 6.
Wow.
And I think maybe the feds have 2 years as well, but I
thought we did.
Yeah, I opted. No, I'm pretty sure we don't, because there was, who is it? McIntyre. How long has he been out?
I can't remember, but I can remember. Oh my goodness, the pro tem before Lonnie Paxton.
Treat.
No, the McCourtney.
Oh, McCourtney. Yeah.
Yeah, because McCourtney got out and then came back as a lobbyist, I think for a healthcare.
Yeah. So there's a list that, this is all going forward, right? This is not trying to capture previously, but I think there were some that came in ahead of 2 years. So and when I discussed this with the legal team, they didn't indicate that this would be a mandatory. It was
weird.
It was new. So
I think I have wishful thinking on bills sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you explain to people, because I think people don't understand why this is an issue. They don't understand why taxpayer lobbying is an issue, and they don't understand why we would want people to leave and not come back.
Yeah. And the taxpayer funded lobbying issue, and likely this cooling off as well, I mean, it's a national issue. Like this is systemic across the country. And so, it's not okay for taxpayers, whether they like it or not, for their dollars to go towards an entity that then has complete control over whatever interest they're going to lobby for, right? They're not taking a poll, they're not taking a vote from the membership or from, the taxpayers that are footing the bill. And that's just absolutely not okay. And on the cooling off period, I mean, even though, this is my second year, right? Second session, first term, second session, and seeing how close legislators can get to agencies and process and the lobbyists that are already there. I mean, the knowledge and expertise that some of these legislators have from being inside the building for so long, the ability for them to completely to leave the building or leave their official office and then immediately start lobbying. I mean, it's disgusting, quite frankly, how that system gets abused. And so we absolutely need to cool off. And I'm excited that that's actually going to get a hearing. I'm interested to see how it goes.
Well, and I appreciate you for doing that, because this literally is how we've consolidated power in the legislature. Just these two things. I mean, obviously there's a whole panoply of things that are the problem, but these two things are huge, and nobody really ever talks about them.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the major reasons why that place is broken, right? I mean, that place is completely sold out to special interests that are 99% of the time working against the people of Oklahoma, right? And this is one way that cycle doesn't end, is because you have guys that are and gals, you've got folks that are in the legislature that get sold out to a special interest, and that's all they do. And then they turn around and continue to perpetuate that same special interest back into the legislature, where they predominantly already have relationships and they already have, with the legislators that are still there. So if we have this cool off period, they're at least distanced for a while from their former colleagues that may or may not be there 2 or 4 years from now. So it's extremely necessary.
Oh, 100%. So thank you for that. And we do need to, I think we had, yes, on this bill. Shame on the chair. I want the whole thing. We need to send letters. And it's true. I mean, people don't, it's like, what were we talking about on Wednesday where I said we sow the seeds of our own destruction?
Yeah.
Because and it happens in school. How often does that happen in school boards?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just a problem everywhere. Okay, so which bill would you like to discuss?
Well, on the topic of that same committee, there's another bill that's still being contemplated, haven't gotten confirmation that it'll be heard or not, which is banning non-disclosure agreements for publicly elected or appointed officials. Like,
isn't that sad that we would require that? Yes.
I mean, it seems a bit antithetical for a public official to withhold information from the public that they serve. So, it seems pretty silly to have to intentionally put that in statute, but that's where we're at. And so that is, I mean, maybe not so surprisingly, yes, 3030 is right. Not so surprisingly is getting some pushback within the building. Wonder why.
Oh
Gotta say that it's a bit revealing that that's getting some pushback. So I really there wasn't a flat no answer on that one. So we've got some optimism going into Monday that'll still be confirmed to be heard on Thursday as well.
Oh, so on Thursday too?
Yeah, it's the same committee.
Okay. I'm going to write this down so that we can get something out about that. So same committee.
Yep.
All right. So, all right. Okay. I don't think you've got to explain why you shouldn't have. This is kind of a funny. I'm sorry, Sherry. We apologize to you, but people like Jim are trying to do something about it. And this is a point I would like to bring up just quickly with you with the NDAs, because I know we can't do it this year, but maybe next year. Shelley in Bartlesville, but it's not just Bartlesville. I can tell you so many towns that are having the same issue with these development authorities, economic development authorities, that you feel like, oh, okay, well, the town has an economic development authority. They're just trying to get business in. But then you come to find out that that economic development authority is a private organization that's shielded by some specific laws. So it's almost like an organization that has a built-in NDA. And these are some things that, again, the municipality will look you in the face and say, but we can't tell you about this because we've signed this agreement with the people coming in that we won't reveal certain things because that is, bad for their business. Well, it doesn't really matter what's bad for their business. What matters is are the people that they are elected to serve. And so I don't know if you've heard anything about that, but the development authorities are awful.
Yeah, no, that is something to dig in a little bit more in, next session. But I mean, just in general, a lot of the projects and insanity that we've all been fighting, whether it's wind and solar or data centers or whatever it is, are coming into these areas under the disguise of NDAs, and people don't understand. We're not talking about an ice cream shop on Main Street, right? Or a small mom and pop. Like, these are massive facilities that are impacting entire communities in thousands of acres at a time. So communities need to know, what's going on. And if I hear the argument that, well, there's trade secrets or pricing and things like that, are these companies really revealing trade secrets in preliminary conversations with municipalities or like, I don't think they are. Like even in my former life, like, yeah, we did NDAs, in the private sector for our business. I get, but even then, like, we weren't just completely revealing all the cards in our first conversation, right? So this is more about, awareness and people being capable of having access to information, right? And for the public officials to be forthcoming and forthright with that information. That's just common sense.
Unless you have something to hide, right?
Yeah.
All right. So what's another one that we need to talk about?
Another one, last one in this same committee.
Okay.
Same committee. Hostile foreign ownership of land. This was a bill that I ran last year, right?
Yeah.
We keep hearing certain candidates, maybe at a statewide level, saying that we've resolved the issue of foreign ownership of land a couple of years ago. It's no longer a problem. It's illegal through the affidavit process now that you have to sign when you close on a property at the title company. It's completely bogus. Like, that affidavit has no teeth to it. There's absolutely no enforcement mechanism. And unless somebody else wants to tell me that they've seen all of the illegal Chinese grows in their area pack up and head out of town, they're not. And they're still here and they're still acquiring new land, right? So it needs to be criminalized. It needs to be a felony. There needs to be fines. They need to go to jail. The land needs to be turned back over to Oklahomans. Now, the interesting component with this bill is I think there's been some agreement that the criminalization component may get replicated in a different bill that is also going after criminalizing, if you're an Oklahoman working on behalf of the foreign entity to help them get the land, you need to hold some liability as well.
Yeah.
So there's two sides to that coin and two players that are tangling. And I think there's some agreement to take some of my criminalization of the foreign entity and putting that in that bill. So it's a comprehensive, hey, we're going to go after both sides. So I'm encouraged with that. That's really good. There's still a lot within House Bill 1453 that needs to be there for definitive purposes and things like that, or definition purposes. But that is also a maybe for next week. So,
well, who would kind of be responsible for the due diligence part of that to see that this is an Oklahoma person that started a company, but it's really being, run by a Chinese entity, or, how would that due diligence part actually happen?
I think a lot of the enforcement is through the AG's office or your DAs, right? And so there can be some investigations, probably even in concert with OBN, perhaps, to look at the entities that are operating certain businesses or leasing certain lands and then figuring out how they got there. A lot of this shell game stuff with the LLCs that they're doing is also factored into the language, so that cannot be used as an excuse or a scapegoat. But I think it would largely fall on the AG and the DAs to maybe receive tips, or, run some investigations on certain entities that are pretty blatantly, operating, under a different, purpose or what have you. So.
Well, I want to throw this in because I wanted to make mention about something. What it needs, what all of the criminal activity in Oklahoma needs, is for laws to be enforced. So the one thing that I would ask in just every bill that you even hear, not just the ones that you write, but ones that you hear, if there are no teeth in it, call it out.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason for these people to be sitting up there writing these bills and then saying, oh, I passed a law, but then anybody can do what they want and just go, well, sue me. And there's nothing to force a court to give them a way to sue them, because that's the problem. When there's nothing in there, then basically the Supreme Court said, oh, goodness. You are aware of what the Supreme Court said about the injunction to stop the driver's licenses from going into the AMVA database.
I'm aware. I signed on to that injunction. Yeah.
And part of the reason I mentioned that, because I was going to bring up another one that you signed on to that I was really happy to see you sign on to. But you signed on to that. 32 other, I think, legislators signed on to that. And then the Supreme Court basically said, well, there's nothing in the law that keeps them from doing that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is insane the number of laws that we have. And I think I've heard this once. I haven't substantiated it. You might be able to tell me if I'm right or not. Oklahoma has one of the lengthiest state constitutions across the nation. Like we've got an enormous amount of laws. And to your point, and to I think Lisa's point, is we want to enforce current law, but there's no ability in the way that the law is currently drafted and styled for us to enforce. That's a massive problem.
Well, I mean, we found that out with Common Core. That was the first one that I found out. That was me personally.
Mm-hmm.
Well, heck,
When
Jenny,
parents
just,
would-
the Parents' Bill of Rights.
But that was the next one I was going to bring up. You're 100% right. And that because we passed the Parents' Bill of Rights and the repeal of Common Core in the same session, that was 2014. And neither one of them, parents would come back to us and say, but God, they're doing this. And we'd go,
Yeah.
because I mean, and none of us even thought about that. But now that we know about it, if there's not a prohibition in it specifically that prevents them from doing it, don't pass it. Just don't.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one. Anything? What committee was 1453 in, the foreign ownership? Which one was that in?
Same one, civil judiciary.
Oh, okay. Wow. You got a bunch of them in there.
I've got 3 in there.
Okay. All right.
An
Got
interesting
it.
Committee. We'll see how that goes.
Okay. Oh, do you want to do the biosolids one? HB 1726?
Let's do that. So,
Okay.
So that's mine. HB 1726 was the one that I drafted last year, which had 3 main components: ban the obvious, disgusting, ridiculously toxic practice of using human and industrial waste as fertilizer. So ban that. Number 2, get some reports and tests done to figure out how do we best move forward, because human and industrial waste is not going to go anywhere. It's going to continue to be an issue. So how do we deal with it going forward? And then number 3, some reclamation and remediation efforts with technologies that exist for farms and ranches that have been using it. Unequivocally, that didn't get heard last year. This year, same thing from the committee chair, unequivocally would not hear it, said that I would need to make changes to it.
What changes? Were they specific about that?
Gutting it, I think, was the implication.
Wow.
So what I did actually in collaboration with some others, what I did offer to see if this would be reasonable. And from where we're at today and the path that I think we're going, because we're going to get into another bill that's being proposed on this topic, which is completely stupid. The path that we're going, this is what I offered back. I said, okay, how about this? Instead of an immediate ban, large cities, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Norman, Edmond, those with 100,000 or more, perhaps, large cities need to ban it within 2 years. Small cities need to ban it within 3 years. There are other alternative treatment methods like microbacteria that just eat it and all that. That has not been used in large part across Oklahoma because DEQ will not approve it as an approved method. So my other component to the ask was we need to require DEQ to approve some of these alternative treatment methods now.
Okay.
And then the third,
I can't go by that.
why is that?
So the DEQ is going to okay putting this sloppy slurry of chemical garbage down, but they're not going to approve an alternative.
Exactly. And what's funny is a lot of the states across the country simply default to federal EPA regulations on biosolids. They don't control it at home. They just deal with the federal code from EPA. Guess what? In Oklahoma, our Oklahoma DEQ has we can manage our own biosolids program, and we have been. We don't need to rely on EPA. We're one of like 10 states across the country. We manage it at home, which is even higher on the negligent factor that we've been allowing this for so long. But yes, they have, I believe, refused, and they were put on the spot in my interim study back in the fall of why haven't you done this? Well, we haven't been asked. That's not accurate. for these alternative treatment methods to be used as
Wait. They legitimately said they had not been asked.
that it hadn't gone through the request process for them to review.
Lord, you can't. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, not a good knee-jerk answer on the microphone for sure. But the last component,
what's the pushback? I mean, why are they so against that, Jim?
I mean, if we want to go down the probably not so conspiratorial, realistic path, using the current method of trucking it out and getting into contracts, it's an industry, right? And you're threatening an industry by saying, well, you can't do that anymore. And so under the guise of, well, this is going to cost so much more money for municipalities to not be able to put it in a truck and go spread it on somebody's crop over here. Actually, it's quite the opposite. The microbacteria solutions are actually far more cost efficient than getting into a contract with Synagro or whoever to go truck it out and spread it as fertilizer. It's more cost efficient and they won't do it. So that's a major component to what I was offering as a solution to perhaps modify the bill, but still get us to a reasonably quick outcome of where we want. So 2 years for large, 3 years for small cities, require the alternative treatment methods. And then the last piece, once we require those alternative treatment methods, large cities need to start piloting that within 1 year, smaller cities within 2 years. And the response was, well, I like the alternative treatment methods being required, but no on the timelines. So here we are. And I will tell you this. So this is what we, if you want to go look up some footage, this past Monday in the A&B Natural Resources Subcommittee at 10:30 a.m. this past Monday, Chairman of the Ag Committee, who's where this bill is at, these biosolids bills are at, he had a bill presenting on biosolids. He's got his bill this year on biosolids. Have you heard about what it does? Institutes a 5-year pilot program to test and see if the biosolids are bad.
Yeah, I did see that.
Well,
yeah,
I had to ask in the committee. I said, so you and I actually did an interim study, and there was countless research and testimony and acknowledgement of court cases around the country that this is really not okay to put on farm and ranch land and contaminate food and water supplies and everything else. And you still think we need 5 years to determine that it's okay? And the answer was absolutely, or as whatever time frame we need. So that is a really bad bill, really, really bad bill. There is another bill from another author that I have not seen the final language in yet, but what I'm being told it should reflect is a pilot program that would look at testing, but also doing a pilot on these alternative treatment methods.
okay.
The pilot would be required to be done by November of this year, so we could take legislative action in the session starting 2027. That I might be able to get on board with.
Yeah, that sounds like a better plan.
I agree. Much more reasonable, much faster on the timeline. But again, I haven't seen the actual language and I don't know if it's available yet. But that is something that I could potentially get on board with.
Well, it might be interesting just to point this out. So when we banned it in Luther, because you couldn't go anywhere, this place smelled like the bottom of somebody's trash can. I mean, it was awful.
Yeah.
And then of course, Sandra came and talked about, all of the water studies that have been done and all. And so the majority of the board found that we needed to stop the practice. But here's the interesting thing. So a representative from Synagro came out from California. Now, just think about this for a second. They put some guy on a plane, sent him from California out here to a town meeting of a town with a size that's less than 3,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I mean, there has to be so I mean, they must be making bank on this stuff if they're going to send some dude from California all the way out here to try to get a town of less than 3,000 people not to ban the spreading of their crap.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah.
And it does.
I'm at a loss for words a lot when it comes to this topic. And everywhere I go, I talk about, a handful of things every time I go and speak somewhere. And this is always at the top of the list. And people are like, why is this so difficult? And I'm like, ask the rest of the folks inside the building, because the vast majority of them are like, don't care.
Well, who would be responsible for the cost of those alternative measures? Would that be the taxpayer? The company itself would have to incur that? Like, who does that?
So it would be the municipality. So instead of them getting into a contract with a Synagro type company and paying them to truck it out, they would be paying for the microbe treatment on site in the lagoons or what have you. But again, the cost analyses that I've seen, it's a much more cost efficient solution. And quite frankly, as long as we're not putting it on food and contaminating water as well, like, yeah, it's a pretty good return on investment there. So
is there an off gas on the lagoon side? Do you know?
I don't believe so. Not from what I've seen or heard, but that is something that we should look at.
Well, I went to Dr. Randy, help me. Why can I not remember his last name? Grellner. Thank you. I was like, it was a G, but then, so Randy Grellner had an interim study where he brought 2 people in to talk about their ways to be able to dispose of that stuff, the biosolids, without dumping it. And I have to say, I was absolutely shocked that none of this stuff had come up. And the one guy who had the Eden method, that was absolutely amazing. And the return that it would have brought back to cities and towns in terms of energy, it just literally made I could come up with no explanation for why there weren't cities and towns going, oh, I'll figure that out. I mean, I know it's expensive, but let's figure that out, because that will return the investment we put into it. And I honestly don't get it, Jim. I mean, I can't explain it. It makes no sense.
I'm right there with you.
All right. Well, you're coming up. We've only got about 15 more minutes. So let's make sure we're getting through these things. What are some other ones that you want to cover? What about the Second Amendment one?
Yes, that one hasn't gone anywhere yet. That is House Bill 3036. The whole idea with that bill is when you look in statute in the section of code where it says, here are all of the places that you cannot carry a firearm. The very first paragraph outlines any publicly owned or leased building that has the purpose of conducting business with the public. We're just taking that out. If it's a public building and it's conducting business with the public, your Second Amendment right absolutely should have full force in those buildings. And so that is, it's not touching the other parts of the code, with courtrooms and jails and all that stuff. That's being left alone. But just those places haven't gotten any good feedback there. Working with Dawn to see, he's trying to help push that along as well. But nothing on that yet. If we switch to green energy just real quick.
Whoops, hold on. Let me get that on there. That's HB 3723.
Yes, ma'am. So
I'm trying not to transpose.
So last year we moved the conversation way further down the process than I think anybody thought, especially in that building, that it would go. And we got to some language that I was able to be supportive of. It was at the minimum standard that I told them that I would stay on board, but they kept it there. So it had setbacks in it and had all these things in it, but it had the county option for counties to be able to either manipulate the setbacks up or down or what have you. That's currently in Senate Bill 2, and The Senate has control of it at the moment. We'll see what happens with that. Paxton just took it over from Senator Green, so Paxton's now the primary author. I suspect we'll see Hilbert do the same thing, and it'll go to conference. Anytime anything goes to conference, it usually gets watered down. We all know that, and it's already at the minimum standard for me, so I'm not sure where we're going to go with that. But House Bill 3723, for me this year, it was, hey, I knew that folks in House District 32 and in large part grassroots across the state were in favor of, let us make the decision here where we're at. So this would give county commissioners the ability to say yes or no on the front end of any project before they can start going through any kind of federal or state regulatory interconnection queue with the Southwest Power Pool, anything else. They would have to get the yes, no. They would have to get that yes response from the county commissioners. Now, if the county commissioners give an answer that the people don't like, this gives them the explicit petition authority to overrule what the county commissioners decided.
But you also had that in the data center bill too, though,
I
didn't
do,
you?
and I forgot to mention that on the data center side as well.
Yeah.
Again, bringing the people closest to the impact to have the most power and authority in the decision. I'll be making a post about this. Green Energy 13723 is not going to be heard. Chairman Archer affirmed that a couple of days ago. And so all focus and eyes are on Senate Bill 2. But again, I have little confidence that bill is going to come out of conference in a condition that I'm going to be supportive of. We'll see. I could be surprised, but.
Well, I did want to just briefly touch on that, if you don't mind, about the county commissioners, because I don't know that this is another one of those education opportunities I'd like to take just a second, because I don't think people understand. Oh, I do want you to answer this question.
I'm sure he would be willing to say it on the record, but I mean, essentially the whole building is looking at Senate Bill 2 as being the number one vehicle that passed the House. That language passed the House multiple times. It's currently kind of at the finish line. And so all focus and attention is on that. And my understanding is other bills related to wind setbacks or what have you, are newer ones this year, are likewise not being heard. The whole focus is on SB2.
So I've talked about this several times. There is a very large transmission line, very high voltage transmission line that they're wanting to run from the Red Bed Power Plant out to the west, and I'm to the west of the Red Bed. So my neighbors and I have been involved in this mess. And I called my county commissioner, who is Miles Davidson, and I said, Miles, we need to figure this out. There has to be some way that the county commissioners can regulate this, because they go over streets and roads and bridges and, that kind of thing, not just people's private property, into easements. How can a county commissioner not have some regulatory power over something like an easement in their district? Do you follow where I'm going with this?
Absolutely.
And so Miles said he actually got an opinion from the AG's office. He wrote and asked an opinion about it. And she came back and said that according to state law, the only thing, and I keep moving my eyes around because I'm trying to remember exactly what he said, but according to state law, the only way that county commissioners were allowed to get involved in something like that was if they had to move a road or a bridge. And I just kept thinking to myself, then what are they there for, actually? So then basically all county commissioners are just distributors of federal funds for transportation expenses. I mean, am I wrong? Or
based on that feedback that Miles got, and I mean, that would be a reasonable conclusion. I mean, that, and that's why like with this, it's very intentional and explicit authority on this type of project, right? And we could expand that further into transmission or whatever. But this is not trying to institute countywide zoning across the state, right? Because we all know a ton of counties don't have it, they don't want it. Fine. This just gives explicit authority project by project, whether it's data centers or green energy or whatever. So,
but it's not only the other part that we didn't really talk about very much, which I think is so important. We can get an initiative petition at the state level. That's how we've gotten liquor by the drink. That's how we got casinos. That's how we got medical marijuana. We can do that. But at the county level, we're prohibited. Really, I would say prohibited, because we're not expressly allowed to. We're prohibited from having any say in what happens to us if a majority of us don't like a ruling by a county commissioner or our municipality. And how I think Sand Springs is a really good example of many hundreds of people went to the meeting and said, we don't want this data center. And they said, well, sorry, we do.
mm-hmm. Yep.
So then the people just go, okay, well, we can vote you all out next time if we remember, because time is a river and it runs on. And then people go forget in 2 years when these people are up, right?
Yep.
They forget to remember that. It would be so much better if they could just create an initiative petition to go back to the municipality or even the county commissioners and say, wait a minute, I'm pretty sure the majority of us didn't want this, and yet you did it anyway. We're calling you on that.
Right. Because that's what some of the arguments that I got was, well, I'm only hearing one side of the argument. I'm only hearing the people that are on your side or what have you. And I'm like, no, I hear a little bit of the other side, but let's be honest. If we're going to do a petition process, that should compel people to stand up and fight for their side of the issue, right? I mean, that's what this is all about. And so, yeah, I mean, I completely agree. That citizen petition process needs to be available as often as possible, especially at that local level where it's most impactful.
So Okinena says HB 2723 puts decisions where they belong, closest to those affected. SB 2 feels more like a top-down solution, telling the people what the rules are and then just deal with it.
And I don't disagree with that. What I would suggest though is that, with industry like this or what have you, we should have some level of minimum standard from a state perspective that we're willing to accept as this is a minimum standard for public health and safety, whether it's whatever setback distance it is or what have you. But beyond the minimum standard, there needs to be local control on at the level that we're talking about. So I totally get where Nana's coming from for sure.
Yeah. Why have a municipality? Why have I wanted to go back to this comment that Sandra made that we're going back. Sorry, but I'm flipping back to Humanure. I spoke to the company. They're doing microbes for millions less than land applying sludge costs. So they're stealing from the people to keep doing that.
I mean, think about if your municipality was able to save that kind of money, how else could they deploy the tax revenue that's coming in? How they always talk about, well, we want to do this in the town, but we need more tax. Well, you don't need more taxes if you're able to save millions over here, right?
But people don't understand that argument. And it doesn't, and I don't know why, but I think we're also indoctrinated at this point just to lap up what our elected officials tell us, even down to the municipality, that we just kind of go, okay. I mean, it's real frustrating.
Well, and I think also, like, many of us don't really want to consciously acknowledge that so much of our taxpayer money is being completely wasted on agencies that shouldn't exist in their entirety, or certainly certain programs and services that are not core functions of government. Like, we don't really want to fully acknowledge that that's happening, but it absolutely is. And so anytime these government entities or bureaucrats or what have you are saying, well, if you cut taxes over here, we're not going to be able to do what we need to do. Baloney. Like, if we actually get serious about figuring out where dollars are going and people understand and are informed of where dollars are going, where they shouldn't be going, I promise you there's billions of dollars in this state that become recoverable pretty quick.
Do you know that there are so many boards and commissions in Oklahoma that the State Library Association has to keep the book of them all? I'm not even joking, because I went to look it up the other day because I was going to make an argument about it in my campaign. And there were 586, don't quote me, but it's something like that. And there are so many of them that the book is at the Library Association and they can't even keep it online.
It's crazy.
You want to talk about where money goes? It's right there. So back to where Sandra said, yes, there were quotes of $2.5 million to land apply biosludge or to use micro for $200,000. Wow, that's not even close.
Not even close.
Yeah, we got about 2.5-3 minutes left with Jim, Jenny.
I can go over just a few minutes if that's okay. If you guys want to talk about OTA.
Sure.
I mean, we could probably have an entire show on OTA, but
oh yes, OTA. I'm so sorry, Jim. Go.
Yeah. So House Bill 3726. I worked with Pike Off OTA on this. What an amazing group of people.
They are. I love them.
They're fantastic. And we put together a bill that is very complex, admittedly, but so extremely necessary. And I put out a public post a couple of days ago confirming that the chairman would not hear this bill. This would end cross-pledging capabilities for OTA. So the original spirit of the Turnpike Authority is they could take out one bond for one road. That's it. And then once that road is paid off, no more tolls. That was the whole spirit of the original Turnpike Authority.
100%.
Well, now what they're doing, they granted statutory authority shortly thereafter, the legislature did way back then, to say, well, if you take out a bond for a road over here, if you have another road coming up, well, you can kind of cross pledge and basically cross leverage the bond and revenue over here to this other road. So what we've got now is a system where there are a few high performing cash flow positive turnpikes that are propping up other turnpikes that are completely negative on cash flow and are actually not even remotely coming close to paying themselves off ever. So, I mean, Michael, like you guys know, like I draw this correlation loosely a little bit between private business and the public sector. That those are different animals in large part most of the time for a reason. But in my former business, if I had a product or service that was really performing well and another one that wasn't, I might choose to allocate some dollars over there to give it a boost and see if it would help. But I'm not going to continually pour money into a failing service. That's insanity if you're doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome, right? So,
or wanting to make money.
So it absolutely does not make sense the way that they're financially structured today and how over leveraged they are and the billions of dollars in debt that the Turnpike Authority is currently in. So this was much needed reform on the financial side of how they do business. It wouldn't touch the current programs and access program and their trust agreement and all the turnpikes that are currently there today. It wouldn't do that because unfortunately that if we tried to make it apply to those, it would violate their trust agreements. And it was just a big can of worms that is unfortunately not something that we could do, but this would be anything going forward after that and won't be heard. So
I'm going to jump in and get Gracie's question before she asks it. Did he say why he wouldn't hear it?
Ultimately, I think the sentiment by not just him, but some in that arena is that it would be detrimental to the Turnpike program, and it would be detrimental to our overall infrastructure across the state to have a really strong transportation infrastructure across the state. I don't agree with the argument from that perspective at all. I mean, the honest truth that we got from the other side was that if we did do it this way, tolls invariably would be higher than what they are today. But to me, it's a shorter runway for those tolls before they go away, right? So we can either pay tolls forever, or we can maybe pay a little bit higher toll on the front end and then be done with it.
There were many a thing that I was going to say.
What else from Jim, Jenny? It's 10.
Yeah,
I want to be.
I think those were the highlights that I certainly wanted to hit, though. Just Jenny, unless you have something else that you wanted to cover on the list or anything like that. But
no, I just feel like, and this is the last thing that I want us to get off of here with. How can we, when they say they won't hear a bill, does any public pressure help? If we send letters, if we make phone calls, can you please hear the bill? Are you finding that it helps at all?
I think it is extremely helpful. I mean, I continue to preach that we've got to bring pressure from outside the building into the building. And last year, and that was my first year, but I saw behaviors and certain things change throughout session as the pressure increased. And it's positive pressure, right? I'm not advocating for people to get out and all that stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I honestly think it helps. It may not give us the absolute outcome or answer that we want, but it creates an environment that they know, that people know, and people are watching, and that I believe impacts future decisions. And so I absolutely wholeheartedly endorse people voicing that and making contact however they can.
What do you think is better, emails or phone calls?
Yes.
Well, I saw a good argument. One person I was reading the other day said, get a phone call in, but then if you also do a phone call and you do an email, it certainly can't hurt. So
it doesn't hurt. And the way that phone system works at the Capitol, if you leave a voicemail, it automatically goes to an email transcription, right? So but I would encourage an email for sure. And then the phone call or voicemail just to double or triple up. So.
Okay. Which were the ones that you want us to start with? I mean, the ones that you think are the most important. I would say the data bill for Tuesday, right?
Yes, that would be extremely good. And I know that there have already been emails and contacts flying around on that bill, but to continue that going into Tuesday would be super helpful. That one for sure. And then the 3 that are going into, the 1 for sure, and 2, hopefully going into civil judiciary next Thursday.
The 4-year cooling off period.
4-year cooling off, NDA ban, and foreign land ownership. I would really encourage and appreciate some contacts on those as well. Okay.
I will try to get something out on at least on my Facebook page today, guys, with a list like I did last time with people for you to call and or send emails. Okay, Jim, thank you so much for being with us today. I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you for all that you're doing for Oklahoma, and we'll get behind you and we got to get this stuff done.
Yeah. And thank you guys for the time. I appreciate it. God bless you all. Jenny, Michael, thank you as always.
Not a problem. Great to see you.
Bye.
And we'll see you soon, I hope.
Sounds good.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
We had so many great comments, and I didn't really want to just keep throwing them in because he had a.
Yeah. Well, and I want to go back on a couple things too after
okay, good,
hit
please.
some of those comments.
Well, no, why don't you go and I'll look up comments. So
I didn't want to take up too much of his time because I know he was kind of short. But
right.
So this is kind of back to you, Jenny. So when you were talking to Miles emailed in to the AG. The AG gave their response. Did it just stop there? Did Miles even email back and say, hey, I have, infrastructure decisions that I make in this, in my district. I mean, did it just stop there? Did he kind of push back on him?
Okay, well, I'm reading, this is what I'm doing. I'm reading that email right now. I guess
part,
he
part of
just
his job is approving infrastructure, and I would think that, power lines running through your county, through your districts, part of infrastructure.
Yeah. So his question was, does Oklahoma County have an authority whatsoever to regulate power lines or the placement of power lines? And she says, yes, there's a permit approval process in Oklahoma County as for public utility placement. And here's where it was: in the right of way for all public utility types, including power lines. And then he asked, doesn't that authority come from the Corporation Commission? And she said, yes and no. The Corporation Commission does govern certain oil and gas pipeline activities. There are no statutes that that govern the placement and use of state and county right of way for public utilities, including the laying of power lines within the right of way. Simply put, if it's a pipeline that carries natural oil, the Corporation Commission has authority. It's honestly, if you just read it, it's actual freaking gobbledygook. I mean, I'm looking, they say one thing and then they turn around and they say something else, but basically all the county commissioners have the right to do, according to this thing that was document sent to me from the AG by Miles Davidson, County Commissioner, District 1 in Oklahoma County. Basically, they just said, you have it, but it's only in the right of way, and you're like, but that's the dumbest freaking thing I've ever heard of.
So basically in the past, Jenny, the power lobby, the utility lobby in some capacity got into the pocket of these guys and said, hey, we need to just be allowed to do whatever we want without anyone else, having any authority over where, who, or how we want to lay lines.
Well, and don't forget, I told you about the bill from last year that they passed that basically said that if you were not an in-state power company, whether you've been approved by the Southwest Power Pool or not, you were not able to create a transmission line in Oklahoma without going to the Corporation Commission. Yeah. But then here's the trick. The Corporation Commission can essentially pocket veto it. So if they just don't bring it up and hear it, it's automatically a done deal.
Wow.
It's this kind of crap that makes me want to hurt people. I mean, I'm not kidding, because it's so it's simply ridiculous. It's like, what? And the Lord gives and the Lord taketh away. I mean, it's the dumbest thing, except it's government that we're supposed to be in charge of. And they do this all the time. And it's just maddening.
Well, and I guess they just do it because they can, because there's no real pushback. There's no light being shown on them to show the cockroaches that they are, scrambling.
Okay, so hold on. Nean says, merchant transmission lines such as Invenergy are not public utility. No, you're right. They're not public utilities completely. And then she says, public utilities are treated special and have eminent domain abilities. You are right. And I'm sorry I didn't include that. You're completely right. So any like OG&E, PSO, there's one other energy company in Oklahoma. They are all considered public utilities, but here's the crazy thing. They think about how much money OG&E gets subsidized from us taxpayers. Oh yeah. We pay the bills. Here you go, OG&E. I paid $600 for my electricity this month. Thank you very much. So you write that off, but then also the state is taking your tax dollars from you. Give me all your tax dollars. And then they're putting them in a fund and then giving them away to businesses that they like. And so OG&E has gotten multiple millions of tax incentives, and yet they basically have carte blanche in the state to do whatever they want and run whatever they want, wherever they want. And to me, that's kind of that's an issue too,
Well, another issue I have with that is, and I have kind of direct experience with this through somewhat through our office. But when I first moved down here, when I was a golf pro, I was a pro at Quail Creek, and there was a ton of, 1960s, 70s, 80s OG&E guys out there, and they all are, living high on the hog from their royalty funds and all this stuff, from OG&E. And it just cracks me up that that's public money literally paying, these guys in perpetuity. I know that, there's something, about business and having retirement, things like that. But also, I mean, it gets a little ridiculous,
A little. Hey, before we get too far downfield, because we have people popping up because they were here to see Jim, and that's fine and great, and I don't care about that. But before you leave, I want to show you something. So I'm going to share my screen. All right, I think this is what I want. So I think this is what I want. We'll figure it out, right? After I get it in there, and I go, oops, I had no idea. All right, so this is bill information for SB 1434 by Yeck and Miller. Or is it Jack? Is it Jack or Yeck? I don't know. I mean, if it's, who knows? Anyway, I want to just pull up the bill summary for this, and I want to read it to you. SB 1434 authorizes the Department of Public Safety and the Department of Transportation to place automated enforcement devices at the start of a construction zone. The measure requires a sign to be placed at least 100 feet before the placed device to warn drivers that their speed will be monitored, and an image may be captured while entering the construction zone. Such a device shall only capture an image and alert a peace officer if a driver is exceeding the speed limit by 10 miles per hour. Any captured image not used as evidence shall be deleted in 15 minutes. Captured images used as evidence of a speeding violation shall be deleted within 24 hours. No image may be used for identification or analysis. The measure requires the device to be calibrated every time it's moved. Now, here's what I would like to go show you next. These are the votes for this particular. Can we see this? I'm just making sure.
Needs to be a little bigger.
Okay, let me make it a little bigger. 1 second. Again, this is why we should have our own producer. Okay, now, so here we are at the actual votes for the bill, and it says that there were 7 ayes and 5 nays. If we'd just been able to pull over one person, it would have been a done deal, right? Nothing. So Dossett, a Democrat, Fricks Stewart, a Republican, Goodwin Weaver, a Republican who is running for lieutenant governor, who is a former police officer, and Hines all voted yes. Alvord, Seyfried, Bergstrom, Guthrie, and Pugh, go figure, I guess a clock is right twice a day, voted no on that bill. What's wrong with the bill that I just described, Michael?
Well, hard telling, Jenny, actually.
It's going to use an ALPR reader to determine whether this is exactly what they're doing in Britain. This is exactly what they're doing in Britain, which has pissed off so many people in England that they legitimately have a group of people who go out and shut these cameras down. They spray paint them, and they finally just gave up doing it in a lot of municipalities in England. They just gave up putting in new ones because they kept having to spend all of this money to replace the ones that these people were going out and vandalizing.
Well, and where's it stop? Once you put that in, where's it going to stop? Maybe you need one at school zones. Maybe you need one at certain crossing areas. Maybe you need one at high, high traffic areas where there's a lot of incidents. Maybe you need one outside the hospital.
Maybe you need one to keep you in your community, like they're also using in these 15-minute cities. Honestly, we laugh. People say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Absolute garbage. That's crap. We're not conspiracy theorists. Now they're going to use these ALPRs to make sure you're following the speed limit in a construction zone. Do we want a construction person hurt? Absolutely not. Do we want people to be personally responsible and follow the law? Absolutely yes. This is not the way to do it. So, people, it's SB 1434. I would like you to please call immediately anybody that you can possibly think of. Let me pull this back in so people can see it, because
they're not going to delete. They may like locally delete that picture off the camera, but it's going to a cloud somewhere. They're never going to get rid of that data. They're going to use that data in some capacity.
But Michael, that's what we've been told 100 times. That's what Tom Gann has come on our show 2 different times to say, by the way, they're not deleting this. And we know they're not deleting it. And they're selling the data to other countries.
Insurance companies like we just saw.
So that's all BS. They say it, but it means absolutely nothing, because once this bill is passed, it goes on to somebody else, and then somebody else gets to determine what that thing is. And it's not going to be anything we wanted it to be. And it's not going to be anything that they communicated that it was going to be. So these things have got to stop. This has got to stop. The ALPRs need to go away. The people who voted for this bill need to be removed from office absolutely immediately, because they have no legitimate interest or belief in the fact that people have Fifth Amendment rights. They just don't. They can't possibly believe that and then say, oh, but we need to use them to make sure construction workers don't get run over. Because it's like you just said, Michael, then what's the next thing they need to use them for?
Yeah.
Please, SB 1434. Tell everybody no. I just had to get that in, because when I read that, I was like, I got to tell Michael about this. I'm so mad. And
that's that slow infiltration. That's that incrementalism. That's just, okay, so you got a camera here on a construction zone. Okay, now maybe that seems to really be doing well. Let's get another camera over here. That's just how, that's how it goes. Yep. There's almost no privacy anymore whatsoever.
Love Gracie so much. Always hang on till the end. You just never know what she'll teach us before we leave. Well, in all honesty, it is so important to do the teaching thing, because, and it's what I was trying to get Jim to do too. We'll explain it to us, because they don't teach this stuff in school. They teach kids how to walk out and,
protest ICE.
Yeah. They're not teaching this stuff in school. So it's up to us to learn why it's important, and then communicate it to those around us, that otherwise it's not going to get out anywhere. And we can't just say, call up there and say, vote no. They need to know why. People need to know why they're doing what they're doing. Otherwise it's a rote. It's never going to get in here. They're never going to understand why it's important. And we have to know why freedom is important to us, not just how to keep it, but we have to know why it's important to us, and what it looks like when it gets taken away.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. You had something else though that you wanted to talk about.
Well, are you talking about the Lutnick deal or the other?
Yes.
The other? Well, I'll hit that in a second. So also, back on the biosolid deal.
Yes.
What really gets me in this whole deal is you have these, like, I live in Edmond, so I live in, cultured, sophisticated, progressive, loving, green Edmond, they'll take away half of the driving lanes around the college for the, for bicycle lanes. And I'm not against bicyclists. I drive that every day. There's no bicyclists in those deals. We're so green, we're so loving, we're so sophisticated and cultured. How does a community like Edmond, this is just how hypocritical these places are. How does a community not like Edmond not lead the state in the micro biome algae, bio waste solution? How does a place like Edmond not save its citizens, its people money, and actually have an alternative to, the biosludge deal? You're so green, you're so loving, you're so sophisticated and cultured. How do you not do that? I mean, that's what just infuriates me beyond belief.
Well, I do think it's all about money.
Yeah.
I mean, Michael, everything is about money. I mean, it really, you don't want it to be, but that doesn't mean it isn't, because it's pretty much all about money. And if it wasn't about money, why would that company send some guy from California Synagro out to Little Luther, under 3,000 people, to keep us from banning biosolids in Luther? Right? I mean, this wasn't Oklahoma City that came out begging us not to ban them. It was Synagro, the company who picks up the biosolids from Oklahoma City and spews them out all over the farmland.
Wow. Well, I mean, right? that shows you right there.
But people say it's cynical. I mean, haven't you ever been told that? It's like, well, you're just cynical. Not everything is about money. And you're like, I'm not cynical. Everything's about money.
It's all about money. Well, that's another thing. Like when Jim was talking about the turnpike deal, and and he was talking to whoever it was, that he said, it would be detrimental, to the, well, how about being detrimental to the people of Oklahoma? That's who's being detrimental to.
I just snorted, because they don't even think about that. They've been up there in that little bubble, where it's all about themselves and the paid lobbyists. And they get into this. It's like they don't even understand where they came from. It's like they don't even understand that they serve the people outside of the building, not the people in the building.
Yeah. I just thought that was, when he first said that, I just had to write that down so we could come back and hit it. But I mean, that's really, I mean, how are you that disconnected from the people that, you're more worried about protecting an entity than you are the people of the state, your own constituents in some degree.
I'm trying to read what April said. It's very long. I don't know how they were legally allowed to get by with it for so long, even when the courts were somewhat following the Constitution and your individual rights. I would think all those people living in that area having to breathe, it would be against their constitutional rights. We've forgotten our constitutional rights, where it came from, where yours, and as long as they did not trample on other people's constitutional rights. Exactly. And that was the comment, that's the story I make about the circus.
Yeah.
And it's a goofy analogy, but I make it goofy intentionally. Would you want to have a neighbor that had a circus in their backyard?
No.
Could you enjoy your property if you had a neighbor that had a circus in their backyard?
I don't think so.
Well, I mean, the first couple of times you might be like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. There's a circus next door. And then eventually you'd be like, I'm going to burn it all down. I can't sleep. I can't, I mean, you are entitled. And I hate using the word entitled, but in this case, it's completely correct. You are entitled to the enjoyment of your own property. You are. And that doesn't mean that somebody next, even, 500 yards away from your place can put in a windmill that goes like that. So you have to see at some point during the day that bizarre strobe feature inside your house, or sitting out on your porch, or listen to the noise, or feel the rattle. Or, people don't have to live like that on their own property just because you want mailbox money.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
So, and I'm sorry you don't get mailbox money, but again, the Supreme Court has ruled that happiness and enjoyment of property is a constitutional right. So there you go. Well, and this
maybe ruled correctly, Jenny. The Supreme Court has ruled correctly.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, because they do crazy things. And our Supreme Court saying, no, you can put everybody's driver's license in there because there's not a prohibition again. Can you honestly believe that?
That's why I said that. Yeah, 100%.
There was only one dissenter. Justice Kane dissented on that. The whole other 8 of them were just like, yeah, sell their data. Who cares?
Yeah.
That's nuts. So I don't know. I've talked to several people about maybe trying to get a class action lawsuit on that, because we did have the lawful right to opt out of the Real ID system. And because AMVA's part of the Real ID system, and that data can be shoved into the Real ID system, there's no way that either you or I have that ability anymore to stay out of it when we were granted that lawfully by law. And there's got to be a way to get them on that, because that's
it's just
right.
That's another way to move it down the road, Jenny, for the other side to say, well, all the data is already in there. We might as well just make this mandatory. There is no, it's already in there. So what's the big deal?
But that couldn't happen with ALPR cameras or anything else, could it?
God. Oh, you know what?
That's how government expands.
Well, and what's scary is, this is just like with that construction camera, the other, license plate reading cameras everywhere else. That's just what they're letting us actually know about. Remember when we did that podcast a while back, where I showed the technology in, I can't even remember which company it was, but anyway, it was the router in your house could image your house, where you are in your house, according to, the Wi-Fi pings off all the other devices that are connected to it in your house. And that was from like five or 6 years ago. They could do that. And they're bragging on the website. They're bragging on the website how they have all this interconnectivity, and because what they were doing, they were trying to sell the service of alerting you. They're keeping you safe. They're alerting you, hey, there's movement in your house. We've detected this in your house, just as an extra little service you can pay for, this Wi-Fi surveillance that's already happening, 100%. Yeah. Well, so I sent you Jenny. So we did half a show on Howard Lutnick, the Secretary of Commerce. Trump loves Howard. I've had issues with Howard from day one. This guy is a complete snake. I didn't like the whole tariff deal, and although Trump is the front man out there, talking about the tariffs and pushing the tariffs, making that, Howard is in his ear, because Howard is the Commerce Secretary. Howard's in his ear saying, hey, we need to do this. We need to put tariffs on these guys. And we've seen just these massive whipsaw on these tariffs, where one day it's 200%, another day it's 50%, it's 25% here, whatever. This country here, who's our ally, this never.
I'm trying to find the tweet you sent me so I can put it up.
Yeah, put that up. So what we've come to find is Howard's sons, who run his brokerage there in New York City, we could go into all the crypto stuff, but I'm not even going to go into that. His sons, who run the brokerage, because he's now Commerce Secretary, they have been trading the tariff credits. There's a whole derivative. There's a whole paper market that's been created on top of derivatives. So countries can buy these credits, just like carbon credits, are created out of total BS. They can buy they can buy these tariff credits, to kind of offset how much they may or may not have to pay or this or that. Well, guess who's doing all those credits? Howard's two sons, right out of Cantor Fitzgerald up there in New York, and they're making hundreds of millions of dollars because they know the country that's going to be hit, here or there. If that, you want to talk about total insider information. I mean, this is the most insider information you could possibly have and do. And this guy and his family's up there just getting rich off of, it's just unbelievable how corrupt these people are. And not to mention, Lutnick's all over the Epstein files. He's all over, when he lied, he literally lied about all his prior associations with Epstein, their meetings, this and that. He's in the Epstein files saying, hey, I'm going to bring my kids over to the island, my wife and kid, all this stuff. I mean, it's not just like a here, there, one or two. It's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails and meetings, with Epstein. So, I mean, that just tells you right there.
Well, I sent it, and for some reason, I guess, I don't know what's going on. It's not showing up in my email box.
That whole tariff deal with the boys, that's been going on for a year now. I mean, you don't hear anybody on the news, talking about, tariff credits and all this BS. I mean, it's total BS. It's just white collar crime, in my opinion.
It's white collar crime. I mean, it really is. And it's disappointing to me. We were having a discussion the other night about Trump and the Epstein files. And, my son was saying, well, he's in the Epstein files. And I'm like, well, just basically telling them, I mean, Trump was never there. They haven't been able to pin anything on him. He was never there. And as a matter of fact, Breitbart the other day just covered an article, or just covered it, said, Carolyn Levitt said Tuesday that President Donald Trump's alleged phone call to the Palm Beach police chief in 2006, wherein Trump allegedly told him, quote, thank goodness you're stopping Epstein, dismantles establishment narrative. So apparently he called President Trump, cut off his relationship with Epstein, and then actually called the Palm Beach police chief and said that he was, to look into him.
Yeah.
So, and it says newly unsealed court documents show Donald Trump called the Palm Beach police chief about Jeffrey Epstein in 2006 and described Ghislaine Maxwell as evil and Epstein's operative. So it's not, I mean, he doesn't have anything to do with that. But I think part of the reason why he keeps brushing this off and saying, we don't need to talk about this anymore, his buddies are in it. I mean,
100%.
And by buddies, I mean the people who own him, because he has all their money in their banks.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say, is there's a massive amount of protectionism. Okay. Because so you saw that one, that last interview, that reporter was asking about Epstein. He's like, well, I'm not in there. So let's just, let's move on. He was referring to it as a hoax that he, himself wasn't in there. So let's move on. He of all people should know. I mean, supposedly he was some informant to the FBI or something on all these files, but he is protecting people like Howard. All the rest of his big money. I mean, because you got to remember. I mean, there's a lot of good and there's a lot of bad about President Trump, in my opinion. Yeah, he's a genius real estate investor, marketer. The whole reality, Apprentice deal. He's a genius. But when it comes to the loyalties of the business side, I mean, he's got hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in investment in these huge banks and conglomerated private equity people and hedge funds and things like that, all up there in New York, all up and down probably the East Coast. And all those people, I guarantee, Jenny, all those people are in those files doing all kinds of stuff, whatever it may be, killing kids, eating kids, all the sex, all the rape, all the stuff, all the underage. I guarantee you all those people are in there 100%. And he can't, he just can't, for whatever reason, he's not going to burn them. So he's just trying to move it down the road. I mean, that's what I think 100%.
Yeah. And I mean, when you have that much money, unless you have your own bank, you are at the mercy of somebody, and everybody's owned. You think Elon Musk isn't owned by somebody somewhere because he has so much money? I mean, it's just true. I mean,
well, the whole thing about that is in the reality of things, just like what we were talking about with the surveillance. They're only showing us what they want us to see. Behind the scenes, they have unbelievable technology that we probably can't even fathom. Yeah. But it's the same thing with this whole money side. The people that we think are the richest people in the world, like Elon, like Bezos, Bill Gates, those are just the front men. Even Trump, they're like the front men of the real people that really control and have the money behind the scenes that are, infinitely, exponentially more wealthy than those guys. Those guys are just put out there for us to kind of, point fingers at. Oh, there's Elon. He's the richest guy in the world. He seems to be pretty good. He's got SpaceX. He makes Teslas. He makes flamethrowers. We love Elon. He did Doge. They put him out there on purpose. Yeah. So we're looking at him, and we're not really looking at where is all this trillions and trillions of dollars gone that we've printed into oblivion. That's not here.
Well, and here's I think Gracie's kind of got it all sealed up in a corked bottle. Nothing will ever happen to any of them. It's just all being used as weaponry, one side against the other. And you're exactly right, because if you put somebody away, you wouldn't have anything over their head, right? Yeah. The loss of control there is done. You can't control them. Well, I guess you can control them from inside a prison, but you're still not going to get not going to be able to wring them like a sponge, like you could if they weren't in there. Yeah. So I'm with Gracie 100%. Nothing's going to happen to these people because there's too much power, too much money, too much everything behind them, and it's just not going to happen. It's all smoke and mirrors. I mean, she's right.
There's you want to talk about privacy. Those people, they have privacy to degrees, that we can't even think of, because their assets are so hidden. You have no idea the opulence and the control and just the magnification they have over everything, if they want to, but you don't know who they are. You just know that, they're out there. That's the elite. That's the globalists. That's not the little puppets that they have in front of us.
No, but I do want to say this, because I know what happens, because I've seen it and heard it a million times before. People go, that's what I'm saying. There's no point in us doing anything because it's all just over our heads, right? I still believe, and call me crazy, I don't know, lots of people have, but I still believe that we have the ability to solve what's under our feet if we really work at it.
Yeah.
And by under our feet, I mean our own places wherever we reside. And then outside of that, then the municipality or the town in which we live. And then outside of that, the state in which we live. I've said it a million times. I don't even care what goes on in Washington anymore, because there is a thing called the 10th Amendment that nobody likes to talk about. And that virtually means that the states have more power than the feds do in period. Yeah. And if we would quit sucking off the government teat because we wanted that money so much, we could be independent and really give them the Italian sign for goodbye and move on with our day. But we choose not to do that because we need to have the money for roads. We need to have the money for the schools. We need to have the money we just need to have the money. Well, I mean, what's the matter with you?
Well, even on a little bit higher level than that, Jenny, maybe not higher,
Gracie agrees with
lower.
Me.
Yeah, lower level than that. We like our, pretty good life that we live. We want to, if we want to just go to the store and go get a hamburger in 5 minutes, we want to have the ability to do that. When you have to be more self-sufficient and not dependent on the current system that's been built, you can't do that. You don't have those luxuries. And we love our luxuries. We love, watching videos. We love, chatting online. We love posting this. We love looking at that. We love, We don't have, think about how free. I mean, I talk to my kids all the time about this. Think about all those people that came west. I mean, they were completely independent of the government, even, you know, as they came. There was no help for them. I mean, there's no help. There's no nothing. You go west. If you can make it, great. If you can't, you're dead. You know, you're just dead.
That's why we loved 1884.
Yeah.
You know, the show 1884. Dave and I loved that because it was just the personification of people who didn't have a something to catch them when they a safety net.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, think about like just how tough those people were, how independent and free, and what it must really be like, you know, would have been like to be. But that's to your point. If we locally are more self-reliant, you know, have our own encapsulated community in some way to where we can, within ourselves, we can provide everything that needs to happen. You know, now you don't need all these services, all this stuff. You know, the government becomes, you know, just a non-issue, you know, at that point. But that's what they don't want. That's, you know, that's that government, that's the competition. They don't want us to be in competition with them. They want to be our provider.
Because if they provide us, and this is the thing that I don't understand about liberals and where I just can't get on the same page with liberals at all. They like big government. They like big government to take care of this or that, or this need of theirs or that need of theirs. And I don't. Why? Because then once the government has you on whatever program it is, they can manipulate the program to make you dance in whatever pattern you want, or they can shut the program off and leave you with nothing. They can do all of these things. And so basically you're at the mercy of whatever the government does if you choose to have a big government. And I don't want that.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. You know, I'll take care of myself, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Catherine Ann, this is funny. The Amish version of 15-minute cities.
Yeah. Well, there's something to be said, though. I mean, those people, I mean, they have much more freedom than what we do. They experience, you know, probably within their communities, much more liberty, much more freedom than what we do, than what we ever, you know, experience. Even though we have the luxuries, we've got all the little bells and whistles. It's so lovely.
You sounded like Trump there just a second. Well, I, you know, it's you and I are going to preach this until, you know, probably until we die. I mean, both of us, because we're just that person, you know, we just, and that's, I try to be open-minded because there are some things that I miss. You know, I don't think that I'm some magic being that has all the answers to everything. I like having people say, well, but you know, I don't agree with that because of X reason or whatever. I don't mind having these discussions. And there are quite a few times when I learn from them. But I can't get on board with that whole, but let's let the government fill in the blank. I mean, there's just not I don't even know how we're going to have that conversation with you.
Yeah. Well, I just don't like, I mean, I want to be in charge of my own destiny, ultimately. You know, if I outwork you, then I should win. I mean, that's literally like my motto. I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, you have to be willing to do the things other people don't want to do when it comes to work. You know, if you want to get ahead, you have to do those things. You know, while everybody else is playing video games and, you know, going out to eat wherever, you got to be in there working your butt off. And that's just how I am.
And that's tough to swallow, you know, when you're a young person and you're out there working and you're working really hard and you see your friends, they're like, you know, taking an extra 10 minutes on their break, or, you know, they're playing a video game while they're working, or they're, you know, whatever. And it's really hard to be that young person who's going to stand up and say, yeah, but I'm going to work whatever I have for whatever I have.
Well, especially in today's time when there's so much assistance, everywhere in some capacity. And that's what's hard is I mean, I see my kids, they're like, well, this guy's paying for all this for his kid, or he's buying a brand new car. This, and I said, well, I bought my own car, so you can buy your own. I mean, that's literally how I am. But, like I've said it to you before, and I've said it on the show many times, the thing about me is I know that I don't know, everything. I know, that there's so much more to learn. There's so much more growth that I can, have. I try to not just be, okay with how things are. If somebody said, like you said, if somebody says something to me, I'm not just going to fly off the handle and say, oh no, you're wrong. There may be something else to learn there, because there's so much more knowledge in every single subject, no matter what it is. I mean, I try to be a lifelong learner, and I just always tell myself, when I think that I have some opinion that's right, or that, there's so much more that I don't even know that I need to know. And that's the main thing I try to tell my kids all the time also is, just something like that.
But I think I've bumped up against this, and especially now when it's like Republicans hate Democrats. This Republican hates this Republican. I mean, when they're all just try to put us in little boxes and then make us fight one another, and I'll say stuff like that. And they're like, but you're talking to a Democrat. Like somehow I'm going to, my principles and my basic belief system is just going to fly out the window because I heard a different perspective. Yeah. I don't like that. I think it's very insulating, and you're not going to learn anything from that. I mean, you should have principles that are strong enough to be able to withstand any conversation anybody can have with you, which is the point where learning begins. I'm not really on board with that, but what about this? Or this is kind of how I think about it, and then you can have a conversation. I mean, I've changed some people's opinions. My husband has a very long time friend, and he was a liberal person. I mean, a very, very liberal person. And just over the course of having a relationship with him as a friend, he was able, now the guy's a libertarian. He's probably worse than David is. But how would he have changed that guy's opinion if he just went, well, you don't believe like I do.
Yeah.
I'm not talking to you.
Yeah.
Well, how would that have solved any problems? How would this guy have literally become a different person? He went from being a complete, almost communist to being a libertarian. Yeah. Well, that was in no small part because my husband was going, well, but you might think about it like this. Yeah. Or, well, you might think about it like that. And then eventually the guy went, well, I think you've got something there. So I don't like that perspective. I'm not going to ever be that. I'm not scared of your ideas.
Yeah. Well, that's just, one of like the parables as old as time, divided we fall. Yeah. If we're so divided, and what's the most divisive thing in today's time? I mean, literally politics. Politics is the most divisive thing. If you say you're Republican, you're already, check mark this. If you're an independent, check mark that. If you're liberal, check mark this. I try to be as open as possible when I talk to people because, we may really align, just like with you and the girl that you're doing. Christy, with you and Christy, you may align on 95% of, whatever the topic is. So, I mean, we're really not that far apart, probably in the majority. If you just take the majority here and the majority there, we're probably not that far apart, except, now you've got the government that just completely disempowers people. It should be the other way around. It should constantly be empowering you to do better for yourself. We'll give you some help so you can get back on your feet in some capacity. I mean, no one wants to just put people out to pasture and, that's it. So if there has to be, some type of government program, it needs to have time limits and money and monetary limits and all the, we'll give you some help for, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it may be, but you're going to have to put some time in to go out there, and get yourself better, and we'll help you. Here's counselors, here's this, here's that. I mean, I don't have a problem with that, but it just comes down to, in my opinion, people are so disempowered. They see a single tweet and they go crazy. That's just being, you're at effect to everything that's happening around you, instead of being, at cause over your emotions. You're at effect of just everything. And that, I think that's the point, is they just want to put something out in the ether all around us. And then it just stirs up. It's like just pouring a little water on the ant den out there. They're going to pour a little water on there. All the little ants are going to come out and go crazy. That's exactly what they want. That's the word, the little ants.
It's true. And it's funny, when Common Core came along, I remember our state superintendent at the time, Janet Bracey, she would argue for the Common Core on the fact that it was going to teach kids critical thinking. And we all knew it was absolutely not doing anything like that, because of they did actually have some curriculum, not just the standards. And you could tell, like Toni Morrison's Bluest Eye was one of the books that was supposed to be on the reading list for high schoolers.
Back then?
Yeah, back then.
Wow.
Oh yeah. One of the girls that I met in the Common Core journey actually wrote an article about that. And oh my goodness, she almost got run off the internet because the liberals came out of the woodwork. You can't say that about Toni Morrison. That was her experience, blah, blah. Well, any adult can read that. But the stuff that's in that book is not fit for any young child developmentally, and certainly not even high school. That's a college thing. And they basically, what they ended up doing with all this nonsense was they turned all of our kids into emoters instead of intellectuals. We were supposed to be intellectuals. Oh, we're going to be so great that we can just send all of the work off to other countries because we'll just sit here and think about everything. But then what actually happened in practice was they turned all of these kids in public schools into people that think with their heart, their emotions, instead of with their brain. And this is why we've got so many kids running out of school during the day when they should, I don't know, should they be in class? Maybe we should discuss that. Maybe they shouldn't even be in class. But it's sad. And, people like us who are, beyond 40, you can look back and literally see this happening incrementally to the point where we are now. But the people who are sitting in this generation are like, that's not true. It's all about history. And are you willing to go back and confront history?
Well, I've told you about my youngest, who he's 11, and my mom, I'm always hammering my kids all the time about, they're in charge of their own feelings. There's, even if I say something to them, I can't get inside their head and turn the little gears and make them feel, change their chemical process in their body and make them feel a certain way. That's them. If they internalize what I say, then yes, then I'm in control of them. So like my youngest all the time, he's pretty, he's just a pretty stout little kid. Like he doesn't have any issue, sticking up to bullies or, anything like that. But he was, this one kid in school was kind of saying some stuff to him, and all my kids forever, whenever they would fight or whatever, I'd point out, I'm like, hey, your little brother who's 5 years old is controlling you. You're 15 years old. Your little brother's controlling you right now. You're just, and I would just put that realization to him. And then I just got to the point to where I'd tell him, when someone, and I said, you're going to be like this your whole life, so you might as well just get used to it. When someone says something to you, trying to, make you feel a certain way or put you down or whatever, I said, you just look at him and just say, that's interesting. Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more, please. Tell me more. And literally it stops them in their tracks. They're like, what? What'd you just say? They're like, yeah, keep on, come on, tell me some more. What else? You know, if you don't give them the satisfaction of getting all crazy and this and that, and you just say, yeah, keep going. Is there anything else? What anything else? And my youngest, he would come home from school and he'd be like, Dad, I told, I said, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. It's like a game to him. It's so funny, but it's just me instilling into them that they're the ones that own themselves. No one else, owns who they are. They're responsible for themselves and their own feelings. That's part of it. And that's, we give up all that emotional energy to the government and this and that. And, we're just total automatons.
I used to have a similar thing that I would tell because my girls were especially bad about this. You made me feel blah. What you made me feel so bad about myself. You made me feel blah, blah, blah. And I was like, how did I make you feel anything?
Yeah.
I mean, how did I do that? I didn't, pull out a gun, feel like this, or I didn't pull out something and say, I'm going to hit you if you don't feel. I mean, I can't control your feelings. So you can't say, I made you feel anyway.
Yeah.
You can say, I felt like that, but I didn't make you feel that way. And I think that's a thing that we really honestly don't instruct kids enough about. You are responsible for your feelings. Because kids who grow up like that grow up to be adults who are like that.
Yeah.
And they're the screechy people who are like, you're making me feel unsafe. I didn't make you feel anything. If you feel unsafe, maybe you should stop and think about what you're doing that's making you feel unsafe. I didn't have any part of that. So it is a trick, Michael, and I think that's a really important thing, especially for us to get off of here for the weekend, give people, some food for thought. People can't make you feel anyway. You have the feelings. They're your feelings. You have to figure out why you feel those.
Yeah, it's your own interpretation of what's going on around you. And how you internalize that, that's what makes you feel that way. And like, as an example, my son was like, oh, that I can't do that. And I'm like, okay. I said, call me a name. Go ahead. Just call whatever the worst thing that you could possibly say. I said, call me a name. Go ahead. And he's like, well, I know it's not going to affect you, so I'm not even going to say anything. I said, exactly. I said, it doesn't matter what you or anybody else or whoever. I said, it doesn't matter because I'm in control of how I feel, not you. Not that word that you said to me. That's not what controls me. I said, I can interpret that word as, hey, this is comedy, and I can laugh and say, okay, tell me more. It's funny.
I mean, it's true. I just think we need to, I think we need to communicate that more. All right. So next week we have, I was on March already. We're not finished with February, are we? So next week we have Dana and Roberta from Moms for Liberty. They're going to be on talking about liberty legislation affecting families. So you're definitely going to want to hit that one. Oh, and Dana's probably gotten off. Let me see if I can find back, because I do want to be able to hit this before we get out. There it is. Okay, yay. So Dana, Michael and I helped with a computer program called State Lens. And Dana found it when she was working with some people in Louisiana, and this guy in Louisiana had done it for their legislature. And she said, oh my goodness, this is wonderful. We need to do this for us. And she got a whole group of people together to go out and basically get it. And she's just been instrumental in getting this out there and getting this done. I suggest you go to statelens.org, and it's oklahoma.statelens.org. And if you'll go there, you'll realize that it's just a totally different thing. It's a way to track legislation through the representatives and senators that are creating the legislation. And that's never been done before here. And it's certainly not done in any program that we have access to now. And Dana's going to talk a little bit about it on Wednesday when she comes on, before she and Roberta start talking legislation. So you do want to, if you're not sure, if you go to it and you're like, I don't even know how to operate this, hang on. Show up on Wednesday at 9 o'clock. Dana's going to be on. She will kind of give you a run through with the website before we go on to talk about other legislation. And I think it will help you because you can kind of figure that out. But definitely you're going to want to be there on Wednesday for that because it's helpful, and for that legislation. And then on Friday, our friend Katie from Visit is going to be on, and we're going to be talking about whatever she's got on her plate for that week, because she's always got something different. So stay tuned and we'll see what Katie has for us next Friday. And then the week after that, we're completely off. I'm not even putting up a rerun or anything. You will just see blank airwaves because we are going to be at Ocana for the Liberty, Oklahoma conference, first annual. And if you don't know anything about it, I'm going to put up a little video at the end so you can kind of see where we're going with that. You'll want to go to libertyoklahoma.org, and that will tell you what the schedule is, what everybody's doing, who all is speaking, how to buy tickets, all of this kind of stuff. And you'll want to go there to do that. And if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to let me know. I don't know why I don't have my address on there, but it's at Rope 2 like Michael's is. So we won't even be here the last week of the last week of February, but we will be here next week with the Moms for Liberty and Katie Smith of Visit. Anything else before we hop off of here, Michael?
Yeah, my youngest son that we were just talking about, today's his birthday. Happy birthday, Mason. I love you. He's 12 years old.
Oh,
He's ready, Jenny, to get his motorcycle license. He wants his motorcycle license really bad, but he's got to wait another 2 years. You can get it at 14, but he can't get it at 12.
Yeah.
So happy birthday, Mason.
Poor Mason. So it's a state law. He can't get it until 14.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is fine. You don't want little kids. You don't want 12-year-olds out there on the road driving motorcycles, but he's ready.
I really do not want any. I don't like motorcycles. Scare me, but that's just me. You do you. All right. Happy birthday, Mason. Everybody take care. Have a wonderful weekend. It's going to be rainy, so I hope you've got something to do. I know I'll be bedded in front of the computer probably one last weekend before the conference. But thanks so much for being with us. Please follow my page and probably the Liberty Oklahoma page. I'll put it up there too, on the legislation that we just talked with Representative Shaw about today. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again next week. Have a great weekend. Bye.